Thank you. And thank you to each of you guys for being here this morning and for the work that each of you do on behalf of our donor heroes, their families, and those who are waiting for the gift of life. My name is Christine Neal, and I have the distinct pleasure of being the Manager of Public Relations for TransLife here in Orlando. In my role, I'm blessed to learn about our Central Florida heroes and share those stories with their families and the legacies that they leave behind. It's our job to then share those stories with our community. When I wake up every morning, I may be sharing the story of a father who gave his children the courage to do everything at 110%, or the story of a sister who walks into a room and lights that room up with just a smile. With each story, we're reminded of what donation and transplantation is all about. Legacies and the second chances. Today, I'd like to introduce you all to a family here in Central Florida who lost their son in 2010. Through their grief, Mike and Dawn chose to share those stories of their son with us, and now with our entire community. They have championed donor designation drives, provided food and toys for those in need, and most importantly, continued the legacy of Michael Jean through each of his recipients and their families. Please join me this morning in providing a warm welcome for Michael Jean's mom, Dawn Futch.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm going to talk to you about my journey that brought me into the TransLife family. And I'd like to congratulate all of you for the tremendous work that you do. You may not always feel appreciated, but let me tell you, from a donor family who has been through all the steps of the process, everything you do is what brings life to others. So continue to please do what you do. I have two children, Michael and Stephanie. They're Irish twins, 13 months apart. Michael's birthday was Christmas Eve, and in November 2010, we own a small business down in Melbourne, Florida, and Michael was on his way home when it was starting to rain and a car crossed over and cut him off. Michael switched lanes, and his friends who were in the car behind him, they panicked, and rather than hitting the brakes, they hit the gas. At that point, they basically pushed Michael's car into a telephone pole. When we got the phone call that Michael had been in an accident, the accident took place literally about 2 blocks from our shop. So my husband and I were there within several moments after the accident. The road was completely blocked off. They had ambulance and police officers everywhere, and I knew that it wasn't good just by the look of the scene. So as I was walking over towards the accident, they told my husband and I we were not allowed to go over towards where Michael's car was. So immediately I dropped to my knees and I just prayed. I said, God, I just ask that if you cannot give me my son back 100% the way he was, then I will accept that. But you have to give me the tools that I'm going to need to get through this. So they wouldn't let me in the ambulance with Michael. I learned that it took them 18 minutes to get him out of the car. He was stuck. They needed to get the jaws of life to get him out. During that 18 minutes, he had no pulse, no blood pressure, and no heartbeat. They continuously worked on him, shocking his heart until they finally did get a heartbeat. They brought him to the hospital, took him down into surgery because they didn't know why he wasn't responding. When they finally did the CAT scan, they realized that he had brain hemorrhaged. And the hemorrhage was in the back of the brain rather than in between the brain and the skull. So there was nothing that they could do. They told me that Michael had no brain function. So when we got up into the room and they had Michael in ICU and they finally let us in, the one thing I did was I put my hands on Michael's chest. When I put my hand on him, I felt nothing. I felt that it was just an empty shell and that his spirit was no longer in his body. My whole family has been organ donors. We've all been registered since we've had our driver's license, not really quite knowing what that meant. I asked them to perform some other tests that I knew were available as far as determining whether or not there was any brain function. When they brought the results back, they told us that Michael had 0 brain function. So at that point, I told Michael's nurse that Michael was an organ donor. I knew that there was a short window of time that they had, and I asked them if they could please just give us 24 hours so we could bring friends and family in to say goodbye. If you looked at Michael laying in the hospital bed, he looked like he was sleeping. He had no external injuries at all. One tiny little scratch above the eye, and that was it. When he hit the telephone pole, he bruised his heart. And I later found out that after they had run all the tests that Michael's heart was not able to be used. They could use heart valves. In all, Michael was able to save 5 lives. These are just some pictures of the family growing up. They were very, very involved in sports. We did a lot of traveling with the children. Gary King was one of Michael's recipients. Gary was born with cystic fibrosis. He was one of 4 boys, and Gary was the only one that was born with CF. Gary told me that the whole time that he was growing up, he envied his brothers because his brothers were very involved in sports. 21 months after Gary's double lung transplant, he was able to compete in a mini triathlon in Michael's honor. Since Michael's birthday was Christmas Eve, we now give back to the community in honor of Michael. We started a non-for-profit foundation called the Michael Jane Kids Basketball Foundation. We run and we do a black tie once a year, and a couple of Michael's recipients actually live locally. This is Angel Velez. He received Michael's liver, and Richard Courier, he received one of Michael's kidneys. This picture here was 2 years ago at the black tie. Adriana Perales was a mom who had juvenile diabetes, and when she was pregnant, she found out that she was going into failure. She not only needed a kidney, but she also needed a pancreas. She received our son's pancreas and another donor's kidney, so she had a longer recovery period, but she was able to make it out to spend some time with us. Richard Courier was on dialysis for 17 and a half years. He was born with only 1 kidney. When his kidney started failing, he didn't know what he was going to do. He wasn't able to work. He wasn't able to support his wife. She ended up having to go back to work full-time. After his transplant, he ended up being able to go out and get a full-time job, and now he and his wife Sophie have 2 beautiful boys. Angel's family is wonderful. We do a lot of events with them. This is actually a Trans Life 5K that we support and we run every year. Not only does Angel run this event with us, but his transplant doctor runs it as well. So, of all the things when you're sitting in that room and you have to sign away organs for your loved one, you would always imagine that the hardest thing would be to sign away the heart, which I thought would be my case. But for me, it was my son's eyes. The hardest thing for me to sign was saying that I was going to release Michael's corneas. As strange as it seems, I guess because everything else is internal and the corneas are external, it was just kind of a thing that I had. So at my request, I asked that Michael's corneas be given to 2 separate recipients. We have been trying for years to find out where Michael's corneas went. The morning of my husband and I's 25th anniversary, we received a phone call from the Lion's Eye Institute. They had told us that they had located where Michael's corneas went. And I felt like it was, a gift from God that morning, just saying, happy anniversary, I'm still with you. So if you look at the map, every place we ever traveled with our children, we circled. We called it the Futch Family Vacation Map. And the kids had places for their bucket list that they wanted to go. Our daughter wanted to go to Australia. Her favorite color is purple. Michael wanted to go to Africa, and his favorite color is red. That morning, we discovered that both of Michael's eyes went to 2 separate people. They both went to South Africa. So if you think about how vast the world is, and every single place that my son's eyes could have went, the one place they went was the one place he wanted to see. These are some of my board of directors for the foundation that we run. A few years ago, we had the honor from Trans Life supporting us and allowing us to go out to the Rose Parade for the Donate Life float. And we were honored to be able to have Michael on the float with 91 other donors. I thank you for having me today. And you guys are in very stressful, tough jobs, but just remember, the reason why you're here to give that second chance. If it wasn't for the fact that that paramedic worked on my son until he got his heart to beat, Michael would not have been able to save the 5 lives that he did. So just remember that every second of every day of your job is very important. Thank you.